Welcome to the Happy Sensory Corner podcast. At Mendability, we want everyone to feel happy, especially when they're vulnerable. We want them to be comfortable in their own skin. We want them to be more confident so that we can all journey together through life more happily and be our true selves. Our contribution is to work on brain health. As our brain grows stronger and healthier, all of us benefit, but especially those among us who struggle with sleep or overwhelmed by the barrage of information from the environment or who struggle with their bodies or with abstractions. And so we developed a program that boosts brain development and activates the brain self-healing mechanisms with short hands-on games based on the neuroscience field of environmental enrichment. And we call it sensory enrichment. And so we're experts in boosting brain development, but we're not experts in everything. For example, we're not experts in what you eat, physical activity, advocacy, job training, recreation, travel. And I'm going to say, because of our guest today, one of the things we're not experts in is being on the other side and feeling what it is to experience the traumatic brain injury. Because today, I'm really happy to introduce today's guest, Dan MacQueen. Dan MacQueen is a speaker who, like I said, knows firsthand the power of resilience after surviving not one, but two emergency brain surgeries and overcoming a devastating, I think is a good word to use, what happened to you, Dan, a devastating brain hemorrhage. Dan has dedicated his life to sharing the mindset and the strategies that have helped him rebuild his life. And he's inspired audience at the National Health Service, London, Wolfson Rehabilitation Center, Headway West London, and more with his story of grit, perseverance, and the power of perspective. Today, Dan lives in Vancouver. Claudia and I are in Calgary. So, hello from Canada, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for the wonderful introduction.
Dan, I want to go straight in. Your story is really quite remarkable. What happened to you in 2014?
Yeah, thank you, Kim. So let's go back in time to 2014. We're going to be in jolly old London, England. I was living there working in tech for a company called Hootsuite, a Canadian tech darling. So I was working with tech, big nights out, enjoying the town, living my best life. Started having these headaches that got progressively worse after a few weeks. Taking painkillers like candy for them, my head was pounding. Headaches got so bad, I was on the tube one day. The tubes take a zigzag around London, lumbering towards Nine Hill Gate tube station on the District line. Those of you that know the District line know that's a lumber by any stretch of the imagination. Headache was so bad on the tube, my vision started to turn spotty, and I saw stars, and then slowly started to fade to black. It was a race to see who could get to the platform first. Arrived at Nine Hill Gate tube station, stepped onto the platform, mind the gap, and the curtain fell. The lights went out. I was blind. I want to ask you two, able-sighted people your whole life, all of a sudden you're thrust into the depths of blindness on a tube station in London. What are your first thoughts, initial impressions, and ideas, please?
Terror. Anxiety. Yeah, pure terror, I think.
I yeah, I didn't start thinking, oh crap, I've gone blind. I don't want to be blind. What's the rest of my life going to look like? I'm having all sorts of racing thoughts.
Yeah, I didn't do much. I stood there and I thought, and I thought some more. I was terrified, as you both identified and alluded to, and my mind was racing. After the longest 3 minutes of my life, my vision came back, and I carried on with my day. But the next day, I went back to A&E. A&E is accident emergency. I told them what had happened. I was on a tube station yesterday. I was blind. This is not normal. They ran some tests and they thought it was vertigo again. They sent me home.
Hmm.
On the way out, they told me I could always get my eyes checked in an optometrist should the headaches persist. An optometrist, I thought, okay. But I carried on, took off from the hospital. The next day I found myself in Mr. Patel's chair. He was midway through a routine exam when he stops the exam, excuses himself from the room, and he comes back a few minutes later with a sealed envelope which he hands to me. He tells me to go directly to Moorfields Hospital, which I did. Well, Kim, Claudia, tell a lie. I stopped at home first to grab a Jack Reacher book by Lee Child, a phone charger and a bite to eat. Then I arrived at Moorfields Hospital, handed them a same sealed envelope.
And did he tell you not to open the envelope specifically?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
This is
I guess he
strange.
thought I'd be
Yeah.
trying to self-diagnose myself on
Uh-huh.
the prognosis, right? So I didn't
Yeah.
wasn't gonna plan to play doctor at this stage in the game, so I thought, you know what, let's
Mm.
just do this, but I'm gonna have lunch first.
Oh.
So I handed them the same sealed envelope at Moorfields Hospital. They ran the same test there, then escalated me up to Charing Cross Hospital. We're getting somewhere, I'm thinking. They're trying to figure out what's going on. They're figuring out what's happened. This is great. Now it turns out I had a dangerous buildup of pressure in my brain caused from a non-cancerous cyst in my pineal gland. This
Oh.
prevented the fluid from my brain to drain as it normally would. Now it turns out I required emergency brain surgery tomorrow.
Oh.
Now it turns out my world's about to change altogether. After a frantic back and forth with folks in Canada, the last text message my mom received reads, I'll see you soon, Mom. I think
Mm.
I'll have a new haircut next time I see you. Love, Dan.
Oh.
Mom
Sense
flew me
of
there,
humor
flying
on
to
that.
London. June 21st, 2014, I'm on the operating table. Something goes horribly wrong. I have a massive bleed in the brain hemorrhage. And the cyst burst when they operated.
Oh, wow.
Mom lands and finds I'm in critical condition. Was in a coma for 4 weeks. But was in unconscious for months after this. Things were dicey, touch and go. When all was said and done, I was going to walk, talk, and smile again.
Mm.
That's when my life kicked off from 0 to 60 in a matter of, 8 hours.
Mm.
Wow. And
Wow.
that was not, I mean, anybody going through one experience like this, you know. But what happened? Was it a year later?
Yeah,
The Tooting
well,
Broadway experience. How long was
oh,
it
that
afterwards?
wasn't a year later. That was maybe 6 months later,
Oh.
5 months later.
So
So
before
this,
we go, actually, before we go there, so you said you're, in coma for for several weeks, then you were touch and go. When did you get released, and what condition were you in when you were released from the hospital?
um, released from the hospital probably 8 months later, maybe more.
Mm.
And I got back to walking. I've been working with some vocational therapists to train myself prepared to go back to work, but it was very slow going, very slow processing, and very delicate, you could say. The world in the hospital is quite different than the world outside, and after losing your kind of your street edge for 8 months, you're kind of going back to real world is quite abrasive and quite dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in very vulnerable, very delicate state, you could say. But I was determined to go forward and push forward into things. So I was making steps, making progress, and taking the risks to make things happen. So I was taking gains, but it was slow going for sure.
And then a few months later,
Yeah, so first of all, starting to walk, like in order to walk, I had to wear a splint over my left leg. My leg had atrophied in an angle in the ICU. So I had to wear a splint to gently stretch out the leg muscle.
Mm.
Splints a cast you over your leg to do this. And they told me it'd be no pain, no stress, this should be pretty easy, okay. The first night I wore the splint through the night, no issue, no stress. This will be easy. I thought this will be easy.
Mm.
Boy, was I wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The second night for 20 minutes was painful. After 30 minutes it was dreadful. After 40 minutes it was unbearable. I buzzed the nurse with the clicker. I tell them we have the splint off my leg, please.
Mm.
But I tell them tomorrow we're doing this for an hour. I'm a walker. I can handle the pain. So I thought. So the third night, they wrap on my leg. They tie it off at the ankle. They give me the clicker, the nurse call button. They go patrol the Wilson ward. Now the Wilson ward was an L shape, so short on this side, long on this side, short on this side, long on this side.
Mm.
They leave me in that hospital room that smells like only a hospital room can smell. Sanitized, sterilized, clean, but you're wondering what sort of atrocities have been committed under the guise of this lemony zestness. After only 10 minutes, legs painful. After 20 minutes, legs dreadful. After 30 minutes, legs unbearable. I start passing the clicker back and forth, trying to distract myself from the pain. And as you can tell on the podcast today, I'm wearing an eye patch, and that's to counteract double vision, which I've got. I didn't have the eye patch at the time, so the clicker going back and forth, I'm kind of guessing at this thing. And as the pain ratchets up, my throats get more enthusiastic. Till eventually, inevitably, I drop the clicker and land on the hard little line floor 3.5 feet down on the ground.
Oh.
Sugar, I say. I didn't say sugar. I look
Mm-hmm.
over the edge of the bed. I can see the clicker on the floor looking back at me. If I can get that clicker, I can stop that pain. I can end this monstrosity. Only problem was, fall from that height might break my arm. In fact, I figured about a 50-50 chance for you break my arm.
Wow.
A coin flip, not the best odds. I changed tack. I'm trying to undo the split, but it's under the ankle, not the hip. I can't reach that far down. I'm not that flexible. I can't reach it. Help! Help! I yell. The word the wolf was an L shape, right? Short on this side, long on this side. Short on this side, long on this side. They're at the far end of the ward. They can't even for help. So I'm gonna flip the coin. Drop down and grab the clicker. Even if I break my arm, at least the splint's gonna come on my leg. That's part number 1, 2, and 3. Blow myself off the edge of the bed, and I crash down in an absolute heap.
Oh.
Blankets, wires, cables, all go. The arm holds, and I hammer the clicker, expecting the nurses to come bursting into the room like the bat signal they put up if they come to the rescue. They kind of stroll in 5 minutes later.
Oh.
What were you doing the floor of? First of all, I say. That's a fantastic British accent you have there. Whereabouts you from again? No, I told him, let's splint out my leg, please. I'll tell you all about this. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it matters, right? The reason why I'm telling you the ability to walk in splint is being solutions oriented. Focus on how you can resolve your issue. Not what your issue is. How do you resolve your issue? How do you fix your problem? How do you fix your issue? That leads us into walking and tuning Broadway. So have you both been to London, England?
Yeah, we have.
Perfect. Have you been to Tooting Broadway?
Nope, I don't remember being there.
No, I only know the Broadway in New York.
Fair enough, fair enough. So let me set the scene for everyone here. Tooting Broadway is an area in South London. An area they call up and coming. Think loud sirens, drugs, gangs. It's dirty. It's hectic, and boy, is it busy. I'm walking with a cane. I'm walking with an eye patch after 4 months in a wheelchair and living in Bambi on ice. I turn the corner to walk on the high street for the first time. Immediately get slammed into by someone. Stagger back a few feet. Someone scurries past me on the right hand side. I thought I was done with the rats. Someone had been stabbed on the sidewalk over here. I'm thinking,
Oh, wow.
it's a pretty wild place to learn how to walk. After a few days, I was thinking, this is the worst place to learn how to walk in the world. Can't they see I'm trying to walk here? Can't they see I'm trying? And then one day my perspective shifted. Maybe this is the worst place to learn how to walk in the world. Maybe it's the best. If I can walk here, I can walk anywhere. Now, Tooting Broadway didn't change, right? It went from the worst to the best in my mind. My mood reflected that. What are you looking at in your life you're convinced is the worst? Convinced is the absolute worst. Hey, maybe it is. Maybe you can find a way to turn down the suck a little bit, shift that perspective a little bit. Iron Mike Tyson famously said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Now, your punch may not be a brain hemorrhage, right? Facts. Will be a job loss, a breakup, The diagnosis for you or loved one, you will take that punch in the mouth, how you respond. I'm offering a compass, not a map, but a compass that always points towards true north.
Mm.
We'll look at things like mindset, perspective, and hacks. Hacks that allow you and your team to be better than yesterday, tomorrow. My name is Dan MacQueen. The reason why I told you that story about learning to walk into Broadway is when you change the way you look at the world look at changes. And you don't need a brain hemorrhage to understand that.
Mm.
So, Kim, that's the Tune and Broadway story I think you were talking about.
Yes,
Mm.
yes. And I love how you talk about being punched in the mouth because I'm thinking of our parents who feel like they've been punched in the mouth by their children's diagnoses. So if you were in
Mhm.
a room with them during that difficult moment, what advice would you give them to help them navigate this overwhelming, the feelings and beginning their journey? Do you spend some time leaning into the being punched? Do you wake up right away? How do you approach this?
First of all, I want to say that, I got a lot of empathy and compassion for parents that are dealing with a prognosis like this, and I'm not trying to say I know what to do or how to feel in the situation. I'm not, I'm guessing here. All I'm doing is overlaying my situation with yours. And what I've learned from trauma, what I've learned from the suck is you got to embrace the suck for a little while. Give it a time frame where you can grieve and be down and sorry about this, but give it a time frame. And after that, move forwards and turn the page on it. Move forwards with life, move forward with like your thought process, your prognosis, and focus on small incremental steps you can do to be better than yesterday.
Mm.
One way I did this in the hospital was, a simple thing for me was the wheelchair. Getting in the wheelchair took 45 minutes. The next day I tried to make it 40, then 35, then 30, then
Mhm.
25, then 20. Every day I'm incrementally ratcheting this up to improve my lot from yesterday. And this was arduous, difficult, grindy work that took me, 45 minutes of work to get into a wheelchair like that. The length of time is staggering. The next day it was 40. And you incrementally kind of ratchet this up and just take what you can take on. And I think another key point is just, pick a small winnable target and focus on that. And then land that and then expand. And then land that and then expand. You compound these effects and results over time. I speak a lot about incremental improvements. And I think, one example of this is, I used to go for walks in the morning in my old flat in Haringey and Turnpike Lane. And it was like a ladder, so it was like a ladder system of streets. It's a bit of a out there relation, but I'm gonna kind of explain this and hopefully bring it home so we know if it makes sense.
Mm.
But I go for a walk in the morning, I go for 1 block. Next morning I do 2 blocks,
Wow.
then 3 blocks, then 4 blocks, then 5 blocks, then 6 blocks, then 8 blocks, then 10 blocks. Like you're ratcheting this up over time. I didn't start out with going with 8 blocks because that's a surefire way to fail. I started with 1 and 2 and 3, and before you know it, you got the confidence that you can do this because the target's so small, you can hit it. If the target's so basic and simple that you can hit that, then you can get momentum behind that. Momentum's
Mhm.
key for this, right? Momentum
Yeah.
was key for me, and I think it'd be key for you. I think getting stuff in motion is so difficult. But once it's in motion, it's easy to keep it rolling, keep the steam rolling, keep the momentum going. So momentum is key. Small obtainable targets are key, and they're just going to compound week after week, month after month, year after year. But you can't try to boil the ocean. You got to kind of pick a small thing that you can aim at and do that, and then grow, and then do that, and then
Mhm.
grow, and then do that. Don't try to get overwhelmed by all the stuff that's on the table because it's going to overwhelm you, and you will surely fail. If you pick a small target that you know you can hit and win, well, you can stack success on top of that, and stack success on top of that, and stack success on top of that. Before you know it, you're compounding this over time. So that's the
Yeah.
advice that we give there, Kim.
Is that
Mm.
how because I know skiing was a big part of your life, and is this how you got back onto the ski slopes?
Well, I wish I could say this is a really beautiful goal setting, I incrementally ratchet this up, but it was kind of more just a kind of natural progress back to stage. Let me go back in time and set the scene for everyone here.
mm,
So early days in the Charing Cross Hospital, I was working on the even bars with my rehab team. Now, even bars are just they sound like even bars you hold when you're unstable on your feet. I was in a wheelchair at the stage and still had none of the strength to walk. And I'm, incrementally working on these rehab bars. And the rehab team asked me, "What are you most looking forward to get back to doing?" Growing up, I played everything: soccer, hockey, volleyball, softball, skiing.
mm,
Big sportsman, and I couldn't walk. And I thought, what would be the most difficult thing to get back to doing that's like reasonable and like within my reach? And I thought skiing would be the most difficult,
Wait, hang
balance.
on a second. You said, what is the most difficult thing that's still within my reach? And you could walk, and you thought, you know what? I'm just gonna go skiing. That
Well, I
that
figured
doesn't
like
sound like a little
I
bit
want
of
to
a
aim,
ratchet up. So what
that
I'm
is true, that
hearing
is
is
true.
what I'm hearing is, you've got a method of ratcheting up to the goal, but your goal is way out there. How do you balance having this big long-term goal and ratcheting up? Like, how often do you review your long-term goal? Do you have a method of tracking progress? What do you I've got lots of questions, sorry. What do you do
That's okay.
when when if you track progress, the slope is downward. It's like, oh crap, I'm not going towards my goal. I'm going through a slump at the moment. Um, Maybe we should address those in order. So let's pretend let's compare this with the experience of a parent who has a child with special needs. Their objective is, you know what? I don't care what the diagnosis is. I've had a lot of parents who come to us and they call and they say, my goal is I want nobody to know that my child was diagnosed with autism at a young age. That's their goal. I want them to blend in, and there's some people who will argue that trying to blend in is the wrong goal. Um, so maybe that's my first question for you. Is there such a thing as the wrong goal?
100%. But if it's the wrong goal, it means you've just taken a step too far. It means you're not there at the point where you can take the chasm to your goal. You have to go back a step. What's the step before that? What's two steps before that? Three steps before that. Work backwards to find out where you can hit in your goal and land there. Kim, I want to address one thing you mentioned that you're right. There is a contradiction between what I said about ratcheting up and aiming with my goals big. And I don't have a good justification with that. That's how I operate, my man.
mm,
I aim big and I usually hit. But I get there by ratcheting up week after week, day after day, month after month, year after year towards this goal. So if you can't hit your goal, I think you got to take a step back and just aim lower to make it successful. Make it so you can like nail that goal for sure, or we're pretty close to. The skiing goal was audacious. It was bold to say this when I was in a wheelchair and not walking, but like I was determined to get there, right? Come hell or
mm,
high water, I was gonna go skiing. And I knew in my bones I could do it. And I went on the ski slopes, 2022, 10 years from the last ski trip I was on. And they have video of me cutting turns like I never missed a day.
mm,
Now I visualized this. I worked on stability and core, so I had some sort of loose practice parameters of how I'm gonna get back on the slopes. But a lot of this is internal. A lot of this is mental. It's like knowing that I could visually ski and the muscle memory of how I'm gonna do this. The video is like me never missing a day. It looks like I never missed a day skiing. I was 10 years off the ski slopes. So there's a contradiction there with like aiming big and ratcheting up for sure. I don't know specifically how to like transpose my knowledge or my thinking on that entirely, but I can tell you gotta have a goal that's obtainable, but you get there by ratcheting up day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. I don't
mm,
know if that makes sense or addresses your question, Kim, but that's kind of my thinking on that.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
mm,
and so I'm thinking about our clients, who want I don't want to be political about the goal. It is a reality that many of the parents who come to us, they just want the way they express their ambition for their child is they want the child to be happy, so happy, so confident, so comfortable in the real world that everybody around them is just as comfortable around them and just as confident around them and just, and then everybody's happy together. I don't think that what they're saying is they can speak, they can walk, they're just comfortable and confident. So, just like you, they want their kid to be on the ski slopes one day. And right now they're in a wheelchair. They can't even walk. Claudia, you've
Yeah.
seen that many times,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And in fact, this is so profound because I was talking to a mother very recently, and she's at the end of the first 6 months of Mendability program working with me. And she says, "What's next?" And I said, "Well, you have to look at full recovery, and that would be being on the ski slope." And I explained to her, recovery means exactly what Kim was saying, being happy, be comfortable. Either the kid is comfortable, the others are, because it meshes together. And she said, "I just cannot imagine that goal." She has suffered for 6 years of anguish, has seen tremendous improvement in 6 months. And in fact, the day before, the kid showed imaginary play, which means you can communicate if you can see in your mind what you want to say. Very often, this is the obstacle for children or adults who are not able to verbalize because they don't see in their mind. Now, this kid is able to do that, and that is possible because his brain is different. And I did send her a scientific article telling that when you do enrichment, the gray matter changes. So it's explaining how come you can have a mental image just because your brain is different. But what was really tragic is that it was impossible for the mom to visualize her son being that wonderfully happy, wonderfully comfortable. So everything that you say is tremendous, because you're talking about I was there, but I saw it. And this is what made you endure the suffering, is that you didn't doubt that it would happen. And that is, I hope, the message that the parents are taking in.
Can I share one thing that I think might be really helpful for the audience? The biggest, most profound lesson I've learned since the brain injury has been the simple thing I'll say now. Acceptance is the most important step on the journey. I've got the new keynote I'm working on called AAA Framework. Acknowledge, accept, and adapt. Acknowledge. You have to think it with your head. I've had a brain hemorrhage. My kid's gonna be born with autism. You gotta believe with your head. You gotta feel it with your head. Second one's heart. Acceptance. I've had a brain hemorrhage. My kid's gonna be born with autism. And you gotta feel, you gotta own that and accept it and feel it. And man, that hurts and that burns and it sucks. But you can't move forward unless you accept it. The last one is adapt. Hands. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to adapt your surrounding to fit your new parameters? For me, it was a brain hemorrhage. The wheelchair was, quite a debilitating thing for me. I really missed being able to walk.
Mm.
But I had to adapt my new surroundings. I had to adapt my lifestyle to fit my new parameters. And it took time. But only by accepting it was I able to adapt to the new parameters. If you don't accept it, you're just wishing it was different, you're not going to take a step forward.
Mm-hmm.
Only by accepting it can you improve your lot and make adaptations to improve your situation. And that's tough to hear because people are going to say, you don't know my situation. You're right, I don't know your situation. I'm telling you with my whole heart, acceptance is the most important step on this journey. And that will allow you to adapt to your situation. Acknowledge, accept, and adapt. if you can ingrain that in your vibe, you can accompany and address almost any adversity I think in your life. But in that order and for that scope. And the adaptations can be a whole variety of things. It can be hacks about your morning routine or ways that you improve your child's learning capabilities or things that your kid enjoys or things that, I got in the wheelchair faster or I start my morning properly. It all depends on the situation and the need. But the adaptation piece is quite key for that. So I'm not sure if that helps at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Acknowledge, adapt. Sorry, acknowledge, accept, and adapt. Acknowledge with your head, accept with your heart, and adapt with your hands. I love the imagery.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's helpful just to know like the acceptance part is so key for this because look, you can spin your tires for 6 months being like, this didn't happen, this didn't happen, this isn't a situation. And then you ask one question and it shatters your whole reality. And.
Have you been punched in the mouth while you were trying to acknowledge, accept, and adapt?
Yeah.
Setbacks on your way to skiing?
Yeah, so a year into this injury, I had a second setback, which required emergency brain surgery. I was found unconscious in my flat by my mom, rushed to the hospital, woke up the next day being told I had emergency brain surgery, and they removed the cyst. The beeping noise, the heart monitor's going off behind me, beep, beep, beep. What happened? What happened? Well, Dan, you had a second brain injury. What do you
Mm-hmm.
mean? All my progress is washed away. Well, we got the blockage, but yeah, your progress is washed away.
Oh.
And I've been working for a year to get back to work, and I just got back in, like I'm turning the corner of my life, and I'm getting myself back together, and my life in order. And then this hits me like this was really tough to deal with. So all that progress
Mm-hmm.
was washed away in an instant, right? And it sucked. And it was tough, and it really was shattering with my reality, and like just destroyed
Mm.
my progress and my mindset. Like it was shattering. And it took a lot to get through that. But that process of acknowledge, accept, and adapt is how I navigated through this point.
Claudie,
Yeah.
having listened, is there a protocol that comes to your mind that would, I don't know, there's a few ways we could go with this. We could, it could be a protocol that would be useful for, Dan specifically, or maybe a protocol that would be good for the parents to do to help with their own acknowledgement or acceptance or adaptation. Where would you like to go there with that?
Well, I because I'm seeing, and I did for the last 30 and some years, observe the families, the adults, the children work hard and achieve and reach the goal. Um, I have a feeling about, okay, exactly like Dan is saying, it's every day. And for some parents, the setback could be their child getting very sick and losing suddenly again the ability to talk. But I want to share a story about stroke and the outcome, and then what are one of the things we did with that person. And so it's an adult. He is a little around 50, had a stroke. He did all what you did, Dan. He is walking. He is back at work, but he says, well, nothing is perfect. But the only thing I cared about is I want to whistle again. I have always been a happy person and I always whistled all day. And so that was he's going back to ski because, as far as neurology, facial issues, facial paralysis in his case, cannot really be repaired. It's one of those things that will remain. It will improve a little, but not enough to be able to whistle. And I thought this is such a wonderful goal that demonstrate happiness. And he believed he could. And he said that I'll stop coming as soon as I can whistle. So one of to finish, I'll go to the end. He came one day, he whistled into my office and said, "Goodbye. I hope to never see you again." And I was hoping that too, and I never saw him again. And one of the things that we did was work on the anxiety that comes from uh, the difficulty on the way. And one of the things that we want to have the brain do is settle down, settle down. This punch in the mouth, this horrible moment of anxiety. And I taught a school to help the children, like a few days ago, to use that little protocol. And in that protocol, we help the brain calm down right away. It's overwhelming. Like I can imagine for Dan having a vision of the suffering that he has to go through and now he knows. Uh, Really a horrible punch in the mouth, definitely. And for our parents, the moment of it's not happening. So for them, I recommend as much as for the person who's suffering, like it is in a mess, to use what we call the tantrum protocol. But really, it's helping the brain go back to calm so that you can really make a plan. And for that, we use two simple things. We use, for example, an ice pack and a scent of strawberry. It's very important to use strawberry because uh, scientists in neuroscience have put people in functional MRI and observed what is happening to the brain when you're smelling one of these odors that we know. And they discovered that when you smell the aroma of strawberry, the amygdala settles down. The amygdala is where the panic, the terror, the rage happens. And you cannot control it, really. You cannot reason it out. When you have the horrible pain, the horrible anguish, it sets on fire almost, and there's nothing you can do except smelling the aroma of strawberry. And that is science. As sweet and cute as it is pure neuroscience. The second element is the contact with ice cold. And that's particularly important in such an issue where the brain doesn't know what to do anymore and cannot command the two sides of the body at all in the same way. So when you hold something that is ice cold for 2 seconds, never more than 2 seconds, suddenly the brain gets an emergency message, a reflex basically to protect the person who is in ice cold, because the brain, for the reflex, doesn't analyze, oh, this is the amount, oh, it's not a worry. So you hold the ice pack and suddenly your brain settles. Priority. And priority is dealing with that ice cold sensation. And exactly at the same time, you're smelling the scent of strawberry. There are others that they have studied, but this one is the fastest to reach out and impact the amygdala. So when you do these two things at the same time, and I know adults who are holding the ice pack and putting the scent on a piece of furniture and bed and smell, so that you can do both at the same time when you're on your own. And suddenly you feel, okay, now I'm back to a place where I can think again, where I'm not uh, engulfed in something I cannot process anymore. So that's a protocol that I use with a gentleman and that I use when a child or an adult are having horrible meltdowns and the caregivers are not able to do anything but wait. So in any horrible situation, this is a very simplistic tool that goes and work on the brain and tells your brain, okay, please do what I say, listen to me. And after that protocol, typically you are able to, okay, go back to the reasoning and the plans about going to ski or being able to whistle. That's the one.
What do you think, Dan?
I love it. I love the whistle story. That's a phenomenal goal and a phenomenal result. And I do
Hmm.
enjoy strawberries, so it's good to know they kind of have that impact with the calming your nervous system down.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the cold baths, or cold showers rather. So I don't do that protocol exactly how you recommend it, but I'm a big fan of cold and a big fan of strawberries, so I can see where the overlap there lies for sure.
Yeah. And it's so simple. It doesn't take time, like seconds. Cold bath is a very courageous to see, act.
Sh
I don't
shower,
know.
not bath, shower, not bath. I should have warned you
It's
that.
still courageous. It's very, very hard. So yeah, holding the ice
It's
pack
end
will.
cold though. It's not the whole thing cold. It's just end the shower cold. So for like 2 minutes cold
Okay.
at the end.
Okay.
So you're warm, you're hanging out, and then at the end you
Uh-huh.
just go hard.
Uh-huh.
That's enough
Yeah.
brace to get up and go that you can't really bottle up anywhere else. So I really enjoy that. It's kind of a good reminder that you know what, you're alive today and you got some stuff to do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. What's a good way to give everybody a cold shower and tell everybody, okay, there's something you've got to do.
Yeah.
Um, to our audience, I'd like to end our episode on a high cold shower type of energetic note.
Uh,
You see,
yeah.
the odds of being a human being are 400 trillion to one. Means you're
Mm-hmm.
more likely to win the lottery like a million times you ever have a life in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
You get to do this. You get to do this. Embrace it,
Awesome.
fight it, live it, love it.
You get to
Great.
do this, parents. You get to do this, teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Lean into it. And thank you so much, Dan, for being such a great example of I don't want to, optimism sounds like a not a great word.
Mm.
Claudie, help me out. What's a good word to describe Dan's mindset?
Yeah. Well, I
Because
would
it's
have
not
difficulties too
perseverance.
because
It's
resilience,
it's
hope,
not really
like,
resilience either. Well, maybe it
well,
is.
yeah.
It's grit. That's what it is. I like the word grit. What do you think, Dan? Is it grit a good word to
I can do with
describe you?
grit. Yeah, thank you. It's something I've learned to deal with and I've learned to improve. And it's like every day is like better than yesterday is what I say. And I'm literally trying to be better than I was yesterday, every day, always, forever. Which is relentless, but it's the fight that I fight. And every day I get to fight the fight, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. That's
Thank you,
right.
Dan. Thank you for teaching us about grit. Everybody
Yeah.
else listening, have a good week. We got
Bye.
this.
Yeah.